Investigating the problem of suffering and evil. Where did suffering begin? Well, I don't know if you know this or not, but we live in a fallen world. Have you known that? Do you know that? Yeah, just being silly. Okay, terrorists blow themselves up in the name of Allah. Looting and murder are the norm on the news. I mean, we see it a lot, right? Drug and alcohol abuse run rampant. Broken families. It's very obvious that we live in a fallen world. And living in a fallen world it's created multiple problems for us. Even if those problems aren't the result of us, as a byproduct, we experience suffering from other people's, what other people do, right? In life. Think of road rage and such. And people have died because of someone else. Well, as we investigate the origins of suffering and evil within a fallen world, we first have to admit that evil is real. Would you agree with that? Evil is real. Dr. Albert Mohler, I'd like you to see this quote. President of Southern Baptist Theological Seminary, wrote this. Christianity does not deny the reality of evil or try to hide from its true horror. Christians dare not minimize evil nor take refuge in euphemisms. Beyond this, we cannot accept that evil will have the last word. The last word will be the perfect fulfillment of the grace and justice of God. What I appreciate about this quote is that there's a recognition of evil from Christians, but that evil is not sustainable throughout eternity. That God will have the last word and he will deal with it. So we're looking at a temporal time of evil and suffering, right? It's temporal. It's not forever for the Christian. Well, because of evil in the world, many have responded to it by denying that a loving, caring God could coexist with it. And for that reason, they have concluded that God is a poor creator or an inept leader. If there's evil in the world, then we have a poor creator or a creator who is not all that bright, not all that great. Right? They also have concluded that, quite possibly, that God fails to have enough power. Maybe that's the problem. Maybe the reason we have evil and suffering is because God is powerless. He's not capable of dealing with evil. It's too big, it's too grand, too mighty for God. But are these the only options that we have? That there is evil, therefore God is a poor creator, is inept and powerless. Is that all we have? Could there be another option for why there is evil and why God allows it to be among us? Let me ask you this question. Have you ever wondered why evil exists and why God does not seem to do anything about it or the suffering that comes from it? Have you ever asked that question? Maybe years ago or something. There's evil, God. Why haven't you? Yeah.
I was thinking about it earlier this afternoon. Evil started in heaven, and God dealt with it. Asked Satan, the chief musician in his band, out and find another gig.
Yep.
And suffering. Later in the garden, they tried to get even with God, Adam and Eve. Suffering started. Women had to give birth to pain. Adam had to plant corn and harvest weeds. That all started, in a sense, as an after effect of being present in the garden.
Yeah.
I don't know, help me out on my theology.
Yeah. Well, we're going to develop this a little bit. But I like where you're going here. I like where you're going. But do you wonder, or have you ever came up with that thought of why doesn't God seem to do something about it? I mean, it's present, but we're going to develop that, Paul. Yes. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So God does do something, okay? Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, the hardest thing, I'm going to repeat that. The hardest thing to understand is the suffering from the evil that the children have to deal with when they're innocent beings, especially if really little. Yeah, absolutely. So we ask God why sometimes. Yeah.
The other question I had is thing the answer byproduct thing.
We're going to talk about that.
Good.
Yep.
That's why I'm here.
Yeah, a little bit later though.
Speak.
A little bit later. But yes, thank you for bringing that up. Let me ask you this question. When evil things happen, who do we blame? Do we blame people? Do we blame God? Or do we find something else to blame?
All of the above.
Yeah. All the above. Yeah. A lot of times we do, don't we? Yeah. We blame God because, like with God, how I think of it is, if God is all powerful, omnipotent, omnipotent. Thank you. Yeah. If he is that, then why did he allow that to happen? And then we blame people sometimes because we see that people are the genesis, the originator of a particular evil. Or we find something else to blame. But we typically do blame something for evil, don't we? We just don't say, well, it's just the way it is. Well, maybe sometimes we do say that, but if it's really bad, we are concerned. We worry. We want to blame something. Well, let's look at the types of evil here. Philosophers and theologians. Now, philosophers and theologians, you wouldn't think that they would be too closely together, but theologians kind of hit the in-depth realities of Scripture, and philosophers come along and try to explain it in a way that we can understand it sometimes. So philosophers and theologians have defined three primary categories of evil. And here's number one right here. Moral evil. Okay. So moral evil consists of murder, rape, theft, lying, cheating, those types of things. Moral evil. The second type of evil is called natural evil. Natural evil consists of earthquakes, floods, hurricanes, human disease, famine. Now we're going to be talking a little bit more about this later on here. The third one is called combined evil. Combined evil is human misuse of land causing a natural disaster like a mudslide. It's looting by humans that follows a major flood or hurricane. Right? We've seen that a lot in our country, haven't we? Hurricane sweeps through and people hit the road or hit the stores and shop without paying. So it's important for us to distinguish between these kinds of evils because moral evil results from the actions of free creatures. Do you believe that we're free? Do we have a free will? Yeah. What's that? Debatable. It is actually debatable. There is, within Christendom, there is I don't want to use the word theological thought process, but a system, a belief that we're not very free. we're not free at all. That God has determined what we will and will not do. But I would venture to say, I would lean heavy, actually all the way into the system or the arena of that we are created with free will. We're going to expound on this in a little bit because free will, what's that? That's what gets us in trouble, yeah. So we're going to be getting to this in a moment. So it's important to distinguish between the three different kinds of evil, because moral evil results from the actions of free creatures. Natural evil results from natural processes, and sometimes the two intermingle. When we're thinking about evil or why something has happened, and we aim to blame, we can look at these, which we're going to expand on in a little bit. We can look at each of these sections or these areas or categories of evil and place the blame in the right area. And I think when we do that, we can better understand why that thing happened, what took place, why it took place. And for me, I like to know why. I always ask the question, why? I want to know why. Now, I know I can't know why on everything, but I ask anyhow. And I aim to get an answer. Because the better I can understand why, the better I can categorize and then bring some type of sense of understanding. So if we can answer the question why, a lot of times we get a better understanding. And if I get a better understanding, then there seems to be more peace and a thorough comprehension of what took place and thereby what needs to be done afterwards. So we're going to talk about this here a little bit. Here's a question for you. Some of the evil things that you have seen happen. What was the evil and what category would you put it in? Looking at these three categories. What's an evil thing you have seen and what category would you put it in? Okay, COVID. Who said that? Daryl. Okay. So what category would you put that in? Oh, very good. Very good. Yeah. Yeah. Combined, right? Because it was gain of function, right? So you took a cell or you took a virus that was incapable of infecting humans. Then you manipulated that virus. And then you allowed it to escape. And now humans are subject to a brand new virus that we should have never been subjected to. Yeah. So it's combined. That's exactly right. That's a combined evil. Okay, so we have two areas we can blame in that, right? Yeah. Okay, what else? What's an evil that you have seen happen, and what would be the category you would put it in? Yes. Okay, sex trafficking, moral evil, right? It's not natural evil, it's not combined. It is a moral evil, yeah. And that's a big deal in our country. Yeah, absolutely. What? Fire. Okay, where would you categorize that? Okay, natural or combined, yeah. Right, because you can have such a dry area and something were to happen in the natural process that maybe could start. Or you can have somebody driving down the road dragging a chain, right? Or something like that. Yeah, good. Any other idea? A tsunami. Okay, where would you put that one? Natural. That's natural. So who would you blame? U.S. Navy. Aren't you Navy? Can't blame yourself. You have to blame somebody else. Yeah, there you go. Yeah, so if you had, so natural process, that's where we're at. Phil threw me off there. Yes, Paul. Oh, yes. I'm sorry. What's that? Okay. Oh, okay, so lightning can cause a fire. That's happened quite a bit, hasn't it? So that would keep it in that second area of natural evil, yes.
Auschwitz and annihilation. Who's that whole thing?
Yes. Yeah. So 6 million Jews were removed from the earth, weren't they? For an attempt to annihilate all of them. So how would you categorize that?
Moral evil.
Pure moral evil. Absolutely. House fire what? Depends. Lightning struck it. Then you're looking at natural, but if there was a faulty wire maybe that that could be. Yeah. The what? Well, if you put it in wrong, it'd be moral. Be a moral problem, right? Arson plays a huge part right there, and that only falls under moral. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Good question. Why do we have to blame? Yeah. So I'm kind of being silly here when I say those types of things. We have a natural tendency to blame so that we can gain an understanding. And in this area of evil and suffering, if there's suffering, we want to know why that there's suffering. So in order to know why there's suffering, if it's a result of evil, then we want to point a finger, because if we can point a finger, then we can better figure out what to do and how to handle that type of situation. So part of me is being kind of silly on it, and the other part is saying, there's a reality here, because if we have an arson, for example, well, that's a moral evil. We need to deal with that. If we have a tsunami, that is a natural evil. There's nothing I can do with it. And I can better rationalize the suffering dependent upon the category that it falls in. That makes sense? I hope that makes sense. Yeah. Yes. Okay, we're gonna get there. Yep. Okay. Yep. Thank you for asking that question. I'm slowly working our way to that, and my attempt here is to build on a basic premise of evil is real and it has effects, but we're going to get to why here in just a few moments. So hang in there, because this is my most favorite part, what you're talking about. But I can't start with that. Yeah. Yes.
Okay, if we have a plane crash,
Yes.
pilot error.
Right. We want to know if it's a moral evil, natural, or if it was a combined. Because then we can cast a blame and then hopefully fix the problem to make sure it never happens again, or put the one into, judge the one who, if he survived, judge the one who had caused the problem. Yeah, actually. Taxes. Which one? April 15th is coming. Yeah, all of them. Yeah. Yeah. The amount of taxes is a moral evil. General paying of taxes, I can handle that. Okay. All right, let's look at how did evil enter our world. So we're getting to the progression here in just a moment. If God created everything, and we believe that He has, any of us in here believe that God didn't create something, that it just happened into existence? No, right? We're not evolutionists to where we just say something came from nothing, right? I mean, we believe everything that is in existence came from God. Well, if God created everything, and since evil exists, and we do believe evil exists, we just define some of the terms and categories, and we put some of those areas together in those categories, then is the natural thought or conclusion that if God created everything and since evil exists, then God must be the creator of evil. Right? I mean, it seems right. If you watch debates, I love to watch debates between creationists or Christians and non-Christians, atheists, predominantly atheists. And I love to watch and I love to hear their reasoning on things, both sides. And this thought is always brought up. If God created everything and evil exists, therefore God created evil. You'll hear that from almost, or I would say most of the atheists, and probably most of the agnostics on top of that. So, I think we can conclude this. Evil is real, but evil is not a thing. Now follow me for a moment, okay? Evil, don't tune me out yet, please. Evil is real, but it is not a thing. Evil is a lack of good things. It's a lack of holiness. Let me give you an example. If you have a wound in your arm, the wound is not an additional thing. It is a lack of health and wholesome in your arm. If I were to rip my sleeve and tear the shirt here, the tear is not something in addition to the shirt. It is a lack of wholeness for the shirt. You see that? So evil is a lack of what is good. None of us can create dark. Like there's nothing that makes dark, right? Nothing does. Nothing makes dark. The sun produces like this light, photons, and they shoot through space really fast at the speed of light, right? Boom, they're moving really fast. And those particles there, photons, are actually creating light. But there's nothing that creates darkness. So how does an area get dark? Well, you have to eliminate what creates the light. So darkness isn't a thing, it's the absence of light. Exactly. So this is how I believe that we need to think of evil. It's not a thing, it's an absence of a thing. See, what exists, when God created, He created that which was good. He created that which is good, and He, God, is holy. But evil is the lack of the wholeness of the good, the wholeness of the holy, of what should be there. So we're going to talk more about this in a little bit. We're going to expand it. Let me ask you some questions though before we do. Can you think of any other examples to explain evil as a lack of something? What can you think of? Yes. Okay, yeah. Satan is a lack of God's holiness. He certainly is, which is evil. Right? Yeah, good. Yes. Okay, what is it? Say it again. Oh. Okay, sickness. Right. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Well, it could be a thing or it could be something. It could be a thing in the sense if it's a virus or something like that. So that's where we have to be a little careful, because if it's a virus, if it's bacteria that's causing that, then that disease becomes a thing. But yeah, I get what you're saying. The disease would be a absence of health. Yeah, which is the normal state. Yeah, good way of putting it. Okay, so I'm following you. Yes.
If you look at it being a lack, that evil, lack of Lucifer and
Yeah, right. That's what we're going to talk about. Yep, that's where we're heading. Yes, Kenny. Thank you. There you go. Because we can't create dark. Right, it's impossible to create dark. Exactly. Yeah, yes.
last week, lost global.
It was dark. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. You know, like in here there's light, but we can't create dark to cover the light. Yep. So you were an absence of light. Well, good. Yeah, yes it is. It gets really dark in here because there's no windows, right? Now, if someone asked you why we live in a messed up world that is full of evil, how would you respond? Okay. So, a lack of. Okay, good. What was that? Sin nature. Okay, because of a sin nature. So a nature to want to do something that is contrary to holiness. Okay, yeah. Okay, lack of belief in God results in things that are not of God. Okay, yeah. Yeah.
Might respond to Adam, but thanks.
Yeah, yes, thank you, Adam, but no thanks. Yeah, that's right. That's right. Anything else? Any other thing that how you would answer? Somebody said, "Hey, why do we live in this messed up world? It's full of evil. Why is you're a Christian? Why do we live in this type of world?" Give me an answer. Oh, okay, byproduct. Okay, a byproduct of not doing something. Yes. Okay, living outside of God's will. So you wouldn't necessarily say, well, you wouldn't say God created evil, and therefore you seem to be grabbing a hold of it. You would say, well, it's a lack of people living according to God's standard, His will, His desire. Okay, yeah, good, yes. Okay, no accountability, lack of. Yes, if it feels good, do it. That's right.
In one sense, it's a natural evil because we're born naturally that way in sin,
Yeah.
which is soul sin.
Yeah. So there's a consequence to sin here, isn't there? Yeah. Well, how did evil enter our world? How did it become a problem within our world? Well, to answer that question, we really have to travel back to the Garden of Eden. Now, many of us know this, but so I don't want to sit on this too long. But let's take a look at this from Genesis. Let's take a look at this from Genesis chapter 3. In verses 1 through 6, we find the progression of circumstances that led this couple, Adam and Eve, from obedience to disobedience and the beginnings of evil. Let me read this. Now the serpent was more crafty than any beast of the field which the Lord God had made. And he said to the woman, "Indeed, has God said, you shall not eat from any tree of the garden?" And the woman said to the serpent, "From the fruit of the trees of the garden we may eat, but from the fruit of the tree which is in the middle of the garden, God has said, you shall not eat from it or touch it, or you would die." Matter of fact, she added something there. I don't know if you remember that. The serpent said to the woman, you surely will not die, for God knows that in the day you eat from it, your eyes will be opened, and you will be like God, knowing good and evil. When the woman saw that the tree was good for food, and that it was a delight to the eyes, and that the tree was desirable to make one wise, she took from its fruit and ate, and she gave also to her husband with her, and he ate. All right, so we have four things that mark the entry of sin and evil into the human race. Number one is this. Eve saw that the fruit looked good. Now, was that a bad thing? No, it probably looked good, right? But it was a beginning. She took of the fruit. Was that a negative thing? Yeah, she wasn't supposed to be messing with this fruit too much. I mean, I think if you start taking something, you're really looking pretty deep at it. And then number three, she ate the fruit. And number four, she gave the fruit to Adam, and he ate it and sinned. Yes? Yeah. Good question. I don't know if you heard that in the back. How did Eve even know anything about death? So I do have a theory on this. Okay. My theory is this. God told Adam that if you eat from that, you will die. It's my belief, my understanding, that God defined his terms. That death means two things. Number one, death means separation from me. And as a result, number two, eventual physical death. So Adam would have conveyed, I think he did, convey that to Eve. So Eve would have known the definition. So that's how I think it happened. Yes? Yeah. Yes. Okay, good question. So if, God created the serpent, so wasn't he the evil one? There's a lot of curiosity about serpent, right? What seems to have happened is that when Satan was removed from heaven, very abruptly, right? He obviously, he rebelled against God after creation, all right? Because when he was kicked out of heaven, he was kicked to a place. So he kicked to earth. His goal was to attack that which was most precious to God, and that was humanity. Because if you can affect human beings, that's the best way to attack God. That's the best way to hurt God, right? So it would seem to me what is reasonable here is that Satan somehow possessed a creature. And Adam and Eve, with their innocence, didn't fully understand that this creature shouldn't be talking. Likely what happened is, because I've thought about this, and this is the best way I can explain it. I don't know that the physical creature had the voice box to talk. So Satan somehow made himself audible, whether that was in the spirit or very, very much out loud, and he conveyed this scenario to them. So I think that's what happened. Yeah. And what was this serpent? I don't know. It was probably, reading on, it seems like it had legs, and now it's crawling on the ground. Is it something that we see today? Maybe similar, but probably a lot of these things had died off and then they've mutated into something else. Yeah. Yes?
Disarmed.
That's right. He was disarmed, defeated. Oh my. Oh my. That was good though. All right. Which one of these? Yes, Kenny. Is knowledge evil? Well, let's see. 2 Peter 3:18, grow in the grace and knowledge of the Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. So knowledge, what is it? Epistemology is the pursuit of knowledge, right? Is that, if I recall correctly, epistemology, pursuit of knowledge. So the pursuit of knowledge could, if we wanted to learn evil things, then the pursuit of wanting, to learn evil things is bad. So knowledge would be very neutral, I think. So I would look at knowledge as neutral, and what are you doing with it? Like free will, in a sense.
So this is red and this blue doesn't be red or blue.
Right. To choose what to do. Yep. So which one of these is correct? Number one. Okay, so let me read all three of them. Which one is correct? Number one is this. God did not expect evil to enter the world and is unable to stop it. Okay, knock that one in. Number two. God must not really exist at all because there's evil. Number three. God allowed for sin and evil without directly creating it. He created humans with the ability to not do that which was good. That sounds very reasonable, doesn't it? Yeah. Number three is actually very important for us. God created freedom, and humans are able to perform acts of freedom. Therefore, God made, now listen to this, God made evil possible, but his created beings made evil a reality. You see the difference there? So by being free, God made evil possible without making evil. Because he's a holy God. That which is holy can't create something that is not of itself, So he made evil possible by creating free beings, and it was those free beings that made evil a reality. Okay. Yes. Okay, yeah, good question. Why would God make evil possible? We're going to talk about that also. Yeah. I know where you're going. I know where you guys are going with this, right? Because I asked the same questions. Why did he do that? So let's expand. Hang on to that thought, okay? Take a look at Habakkuk chapter 1. Habakkuk chapter 1. Habakkuk, my most favorite prophet. Right, my favorite prophet. And so as you're turning there, that's already up, but anyhow. So let me give you this real quick. Let me tell you why. I might have told you this before, but let me tell you why Habakkuk's my favorite prophet. Habakkuk is living among the Jewish people who are God's people, and he prays and he says, God, when are you going to do something with your people? They're evil. They're sinners. They're terrible people. And he complains and complains. And then God says this. God finally spoke to Habakkuk. He said, oh, I am going to do something you wouldn't even believe. I'm raising up the Chaldeans, the Babylonians, and they're going to come and wipe all of you out. And the few that are left, they're going to enslave. And then Habakkuk says, hold it. That's not what I meant, God. And so they have a dialogue. And at the very end in chapter 3, Habakkuk says this. If there's no olives on the tree, if there's no cattle in the field, and he talks about that, and he says, look, I will still praise and glorify you. And what I love about Habakkuk is he had a complaint. God gave it to him straight. And after working it through, he said, whatever you do, God, it's got to be good. And I'll glorify and praise you for it. So I love this guy because he has a really bad attitude. And then he changes it. What's that? Like Jonah. Yeah, like Jonah. Well, did Jonah ever change his mind or was he forced to? All right, Habakkuk 1:13. Habakkuk said to God, he said, your eyes are too pure to approve evil. Thinking about them coming over. And you cannot look on wickedness with favor. Why do you look with favor on those who deal treacherously? Why are you silent when the wicked swallow up those more righteous than they? Well, God could not have created evil because he's too pure. He's holy. So that which is holy can't produce a lack of holiness. Even Habakkuk questioned why God allowed evil. God allows for free will to be exercised, but he questioned why God allowed evil. And I think it's legit. I think it's fair to ask the question, why? Why is there evil, God? If you're all powerful and you're without evil, why evil? All right, let's look at this. The role of human choice. Dr. Norman Geisler. Anybody know Dr. Norman Geisler? Probably the greatest apologist that I can think of. Did you? Okay. I love the guy. He's gone in heaven now, but he was asked, Dr. Norman Geisler, he did some debates and such, and he was asked, where did the evil come from that is in the world? And I want you to see his response. He said this, according to the Bible, God is absolutely good. And he made an absolutely good world. Everything he made, he said, it is good. Every creature of God is good. One of the good things that he gave some of those creatures was free will. It is good to be free. Hardly anyone would say freedom is bad, but freedom is the source of evil because if you are really free to love God, you are also free not to love him. So evil arose from free will. Freedom is a good. God created the good of freedom. Man performs the acts of evil by misusing his freedom. Wow. Let me ask you this question. According to what Geisler stated here, free choice resulted in the opportunity for evil to enter the world. Why would a loving God give people the opportunity to do evil? Betty's question, right? Why is that, Paul?
I just need some adamant priest if they lived happily ever after.
I don't know. Good question. If they, yeah.
In a sense, what Satan did backfired on him.
Ultimately
God was
backfired.
able to manifest grace.
Yeah, interesting thought. Yeah, yes. Thank you. Good question. If Adam and Eve was created perfect, how were they able to misuse freedom? And this is where a proper translation of Scripture is needed. When God created, He said it was good. That's the key. If we would put that good into perfect, then the perfect can't change. But it was good. There you go. It wasn't perfect. Because perfect would eliminate possibility, right? So good allows for possibility. So when He created, remember after every day, and it was good, and it was good, and it was good. So He left that room for Adam to sin, evil to enter, and suffering to come. Yeah, absolutely. There was room for improvement, and that's where Jesus came in. Yeah, that's good. I like that. That's all right.
After creation, God saw it good. Gave Adam a wife. They did.
Yeah. I've used that before, and I get in trouble for that. I don't use that anymore. Yeah. Okay, why do natural disasters occur? Why do natural disasters occur? Well, yeah, that it is. It's important to realize that we live in a fallen world, and as a result of our first ancestors, Adam and Eve, who exercised a choice, right? A choice not to do that which was holy. Now, this brought negative consequences. And we've established some of those negative consequences in Genesis chapter 3, which was a broken relationship with God, a curse on the natural world, and increased pain in childbearing. So, even though we are free creatures, we live in a world affected by the wrong use of human choice. Furthermore, we live in a world in which consistent natural processes allow us to predict with some certainty the outcome of our choices and actions. Let me give you an example of that. Gravity, I think, is an important thing. Would you agree? Gravity is important. If the Earth stopped, you know what would happen to us? Man, we would shoot out into space like lightning. Well, gravity is a natural process. Without it, we couldn't function. Yet, if we fall out of a tree or off a roof, this same good natural law could result in great harm. Also, some cataclysmic events in nature may be direct acts of God. We're talking about natural things. So we have one area where gravity is a good law. But if I jump off a roof, that good law becomes very bad for me. But there are such things as acts of God, or they may be, so let me say this again, some cataclysmic events in nature may be the direct act of God, or they may be the result of the evil in the world, or they may be the necessary byproducts of the world in which we live. For example, plate tectonics. What happens when plate tectonics shift? I mean, if there's a lot of tension and then they shift, right? You have earthquakes, you have tsunamis, you have volcanoes, yet they play a role in the development of petroleum deposits. It's actually a good process. The water cycle sometimes brings flooding to an area. That area may need water, but at the same time, that flooding could bring death if somebody drowns. So we live in a fallen world because of this. Natural disasters do happen, and God can use nature for His own purpose. And some of the acts of nature are a good thing, but we can be hurt by that good thing. I mean, it's kind of a mess in a way. So to fully grasp why natural disasters occur and destroy is not always very clear. It's not always clear why that thing happened. Mount St. Helen. Does anybody remember Mount St. Helen blowing up? Okay. Mount St. Helen blew, and there were people on the mountain, around the mountain, that would not leave. And they're still there. Yeah. In hundreds of feet of ash, probably, but they're there, right? It's a natural disaster. We don't know why it had to blow, but thankfully we could predict that it was going to blow. So you could evacuate the area, and if you didn't evacuate the area, then you were going to suffer the consequences of a natural disaster. And those natural disasters, a lot of times, can bring great damage. So to fully grasp why natural disasters occur, we can't always do that, but we can trust God and accept that our finite minds may not always understand an infinite God. Why did this happen, God? Was it because you didn't like those people? Well, it could be just a result of living in a fallen world. It had nothing to do with God not liking those people. Have you heard that before, where a natural disaster happens and somebody says, well, God must be judging them? What's that? Well, I remember the passage with the eyes, right? So there was a blind person, and why is he blind? What did his parents do? What sin did they do, right? And Jesus said, oh, this man's blind to show the glory of God, right? So not everything that happens that's negative is something that God is using to bring judgment. Kenny? Yeah. That's right. So, exactly. So, Betty, did your question get answered? Yes. Okay, good. Yeah, John. Yes. 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 Yeah, so good question. What's interesting here is that the Babylonians were evil people, right? They were pagan, evil people according to history. That's what we know. And then we have this verbiage in Habakkuk that God was raising them up. So did God create an evil here? Well, by their free will, they chose to rebel against the singular God, right? The one God. And God used their rebellion to bring a judgment. So it is interesting that God will use the evil to carry out a judgment or his will for something greater, but he isn't the creator of that evil, but he may use that evil. So yeah. Yeah, no, I know that. Yeah. He does. He will. It's a weird thing that he will do. Yes. Yes. Yes.
We're in the old. I've been. For example.
So we do, but especially from a future standpoint, because remember, a lot of the letters are, revelation. Because a lot of those letters were not accounts. They were letters written to the churches. So there just wasn't much on that. But in Revelation, we do have that kind of that Old Testament judgment. Yeah. Yes. In a matter of minutes. Yeah. What they said happened over millions of years took place in minutes. Petrified trees upside down in the water. Boom. I mean, it was amazing, but it didn't affect them. I can tell you that. It didn't affect him. All right, any final thoughts? And then we can close up. Yes.
Question I had, beginning problem as believers.
Right. So did you guys hear that? You did hear it? Okay. So we are going to be talking about that as we progress.
Good.
Because this is a topic of discussion. Today was just nailing down the fact that God did not create evil. Evil is a result of free choice. Evil is the absence of holiness. So when any of us don't do that which is holy, the byproduct is evil, and there's always consequences to doing something good or doing something evil. That's kind of what we wanted to establish. And then the three different types of evil, which were the moral, and do you remember the second one? Natural, and then the mixed, right? Combined, exactly. So then, as a result of free will, those three things came into play, which means that if free will wasn't exercised the way it was, and that Adam and Eve and everyone after them continued, that they exercised their free will in only exercising holiness and not doing that which was contrary to holiness and thereby evil, those three things would not be in play today to the extent to where they are, right? And I can't imagine a world like that. That's right. Always blame somebody else. Just kidding. All right, let me close this up in prayer. Father, thank you for this time that we could gain a little bit a better understanding, at least a basic understanding before we progress in all the different areas coming up here in the next several weeks. But it gives us a starting place. And hopefully, God, it helps us to see you differently. And we are grateful that you are holy and that there's nothing evil in you. And we're grateful that you have given us free choice. Free choice to love you freely, to chase after you freely. But we also have this other problem, Lord, of not doing those things. And there's terrible consequences. And as we move forward, help us to understand this. Help us to gain a better comprehension of how you function, how we function, and how moving in the direction that is of you is better for us now and in the future. We want to hear everything you have to say about this. Please help us. In Jesus' name, amen.